What's going on, Godzirra Nation? This is Arghgodzirra, and welcome back to another installment of Arghgodzirra'S footy tipping competition, looking ahead to AFL 2019 Round 6 action. Thank you for joining me as always. This weekend, very crucial in the AFL roster, being the fact that it is Anzac weekend, which sees some of the biggest rivalries go head to head. However, before we start and get our tips locked in for round 6, we normally kick these off with recapping the week that happened prior. Because there's only a one-day turnaround between rounds 5 and round 6, what I'm going to do is have a combined recap at the beginning of round 7 tips. And I'm also going to show an updated ladder to show where everybody is situated from first to last, according to how many correct tips have been selected within the first 6 rounds of football. So get excited for that. You'll finally find out where you're situated if you have been competing. But it's time to look ahead to a very big week of AFL action. Kicking off tomorrow night at the MCG with Richmond hosting Melbourne. Anzac Day Eve. We've seen this rivalry go down the last couple of years. Richmond coming off of the back of a very nice win against Sydney last week at Marvel Stadium. On the opposite side of the spectrum, Melbourne coming off of a loss at the hands of St Kilda at the MCG. Melbourne are in all sorts. Simon Goodwin come out post-game last week saying they are an easy side to beat. When the coach goes on record saying that about their own playing group, you know there are issues going down at that club. They need to turn it around, but this is not the week to do so, because I am tipping Richmond on the back of what we've seen the last couple of weeks to get the job done comfortably here. They welcomed Dustin Martin back last week. He actually showed glimpses of the Dustin Martin we saw that won the Brownlow medal in 2017, and if he started to get back to his best, I am very happy he had that 1 week vacation. Rumours are Jack Riewoldt is going to line up for this game as well, and with Neville Jetta out of the back line for Melbourne, adding Riewoldt to that mix makes it a hell of a lot harder for Melbourne to deal with when Richmond move the ball inside their forward 50. So Richmond for me quite comfortably to kick off Anzac week of football. Thursday afternoon we have the inaugural Anzac Day Clash between Essendon and Collingwood at the MCG. Both teams coming off of sizable wins last week. Even though I tipped Collingwood in all other tipping, when it come to the tipping here, I went with Brisbane. I should have gone with my gut and stuck with Collingwood. Essendon, on the other hand, we did tip to beat North Melbourne. However, I did not predict them going as huge as they did. Both teams coming in with a hell of a lot of momentum. However, I've been arm wrestling with this decision for a little bit. I'm going to lock in Collingwood. I think Collingwood's depth goes a little bit deeper than that of Essendon's, and I think what we've seen from Collingwood so far this year in comparison to what we've seen from Essendon, I think Collingwood has been more influential when it comes to games, more impressive to watch. I'm not discrediting Essendon at all, because the last few weeks they have been absolutely phenomenal. I just think when it comes to an all-round performance when these two teams clash, Collingwood have coverage that are going to help in spots where Essendon were just able to run all over the top of North last week. So Collingwood for me for the Anzac Day Clash. Friday night we see Port Adelaide hosting North Melbourne at Adelaide Oval. As I just mentioned, North Melbourne coming off of a big loss to Essendon. Port Adelaide travelling to West Coast last week and giving them a touch up in the rain. Something I don't think anybody apart from maybe some Port Adelaide supporters out there would have predicted. And it's as simple as this. Port Adelaide are going to win this by 40 to 50 points. And if they do, I'm making a very, very gratuitous call here. They have to sack Scott as North Melbourne coach. I feel the excuses are done and dusted. If North Melbourne really want to move forward, they need to start at who is manning the helm. And if the coach is steering them in the wrong direction, time to bring a new one on board. But it's as simple as that. Port Adelaide by a big margin Friday night. Saturday kicks off at Metricon Stadium, the Q Clash. Gold Coast Suns up against Brisbane. Gold Coast started very competitively against Adelaide last week, but dropped away in a big way. Brisbane, very similar fashion, hung about for a very long time, but Collingwood just way too superior and ran away with the game. So both coming off a bit of a touch-up from their respective opposition. But I feel going into this game, Brisbane are going to win this Q Clash. Even though Gold Coast have looked impressive in the games that they have won, and in all fairness should have actually beaten St Kilda in that game, and they should have an extra win on the board. I think Brisbane and their game style has been vastly more impressive to watch, and even though they copped that loss to Collingwood last week, I think that's going to rejuvenate the boys a little bit more, and they're going to come out firing. So it's going to be Brisbane for me to wrap up the 2019 Q Clash. We head on over to Marvel Stadium, St Kilda hosting Adelaide. St Kilda knocking off Melbourne last week, Adelaide pumping the Gold Coast Suns. This is another game I've been arm wrestling with, because as much as Adelaide could come over here and do some damage, I can't discredit what St Kilda have been able to do this year. And St Kilda have taken it to teams like Hawthorn, who has knocked Adelaide off. So when you do the whole, if this team bet that team and then they lost to this team, are they good enough to beat them? I think they are. I'm actually going to tip St Kilda to beat Adelaide at Marvel Stadium. I know this one's going to probably come close. Even the bookies, I think, have this pretty close in the betting system. But I think St Kilda here, they have something that the Gold Coast Suns weren't able to replicate. St Kilda have the drive to run all day, even if they are under the hammer and losing on that scoreboard. Gold Coast seemingly dropped off. They've got a lot of inexperience in that team, whereas St Kilda have been playing with each other long enough to know the game style, to know how each other plays. We have seen a very vastly improved side in 2019, and I think they're going to continue on with that momentum and knock Adelaide off Saturday afternoon. The SCG has the Battle of the Bridge. Sydney against GWS. Sydney obviously losing to Richmond last week, but they did put up a bit of a fight, and I was worried in sections of that game. The Giants getting knocked off in Canberra by Fremantle. I think that probably would have been shock of the round, without a shadow of a doubt. I think that's going to burn enough desire in the Giants to come out and win this Battle of the Bridge. I'm going to lock in GWS to knock Sydney off. I just feel, even though they copped a loss last week, GWS are still one of the front runners for this year's premiership. Let's not forget, we've seen teams in the past that have gone on and won the premiership get touched up at one point or another during the season. We only have to look at the year that Richmond won the premiership. Adelaide absolutely wiped the floor with them at the start of the year, and we had a look at that massive turnaround that happened afterwards. I think GWS had that turning point last week in Canberra. They're going to bounce back, and they're going to comfortably lock up this win against Sydney. I'm looking forward to a great contest, because these two teams always put on a good match against each other. But GWS, for me, walks away victorious in the Battle of the Bridge. Rounding out Saturday night action, we have Fremantle hosting the Western Bulldogs at Optus Stadium. As I just mentioned, Fremantle a big win in Canberra against GWS. Western Bulldogs dropping a match and allowing Carlton to pick up their first win of the season. A very valiant effort by Carlton, mind you, but we'll get to that in the next match. I think here, on the back of travelling to Canberra and knocking off a premiership contender, you have to back Fremantle at home. Nat Fyfe back in the team added a lot of flair to that midfield that seemed to be lacking the week before, even though they were very competitive the week before. I think now Fremantle, they're starting to prove a lot of people wrong. They're in the same boat as Brisbane, the same boat as St Kilda. A lot of people had written this team off, and they have come out swinging and put a lot of naysayers to rest. They're going to get another win to wrap up Saturday afternoon and continue a possible finals push for 2019. Sunday has two games to wrap up Anzac weekend, kicking off with Hawthorn taking on Carlton over at Tasmania. Carlton, a very nice win over the Bulldogs. Hawthorn, valiant in effort, but couldn't get the job done against Geelong in the Easter Monday Clash. Where this game becomes interesting, and normally I would have said Hawthorn in a heartbeat, but I really have to sit back and look at this because we had Stratton out due to concussion. They've lost the likes of Sean Burgoyne. They had another few backmen out as well in Frawley, a couple of others out with injury. Carlton showed last week that they can take it to a team that has a fast-paced midfield, just like Hawthorn. Bulldogs and Hawthorn are very much the same when it comes to their midfield group. Love the contested ball, and they can run for days and days and days. Carlton just came out and put that to rest, and Carlton could really, and I'm being serious here, I think Carlton could really push Hawthorn to their limits. I am going to tip Hawthorn to win this game, but don't be surprised if Carlton come out and cause an upset again. I said last week Carlton had the opportunity to knock the Bulldogs off. They came out, they did that. This week, they could do it to Hawthorn, but I'm going to back Hawthorn here. I just feel the effort they put in against Geelong to stay in touch, even with all those outs, I think it was very impressive. And the fact that Hawthorn seemed to play very well when they travelled to Tasmania, you've got to back that in as well. So Hawthorn for me, Sunday afternoon. And round 6 rounds out with Geelong hosting West Coast Eagles at GMHBA Stadium. Geelong knocking off Hawthorn in the Easter Monday Clash, as we just alluded to. West Coast getting touched up at home by Port Adelaide. This game here, I would probably say it's clean cut, but it's not really, because Eagles are in a position here where they can come down and do a bit of damage as well. However, apart from letting it slip to GWS, Geelong defend GMHBA Stadium very well. And after what we saw them do to Hawthorn yesterday, I just feel they're going to come out, get the job done against West Coast. West Coast, we know in the past, has had travelling issues. They don't really play well away from home. This could be a game where if they come out and win, they can put that to rest. I just feel Geelong will be too far superior here, and they'll knock the Eagles off at home. So to wrap it up, my tips for round 6, Richmond, Collingwood, Port Adelaide, Brisbane, St Kilda, GWS, Fremantle, Hawthorn and Geelong. If you are competing in this footy competition, make sure to leave your picks in the comment section down below. Leave a like on the video if you have been enjoying this. It goes a long way to supporting myself, and I cannot thank you guys enough for all that. If you're new to the channel, plenty of other stuff to go check out apart from this. I've got some gameplays going on. There's a few unboxing videos as well. And I've got a plethora of brand new content that is coming. So if you haven't subscribed already, hit that subscribe button, become a member of the Godzirra Nation, sit back and wait for the new content to drop. I hope you guys do enjoy what I have planned. But to wrap this one up, we aren't going to do the usual outro music. I think it's befitting that we sit back and listen to the last post and pay our respects to not only the Anzacs that have laid their lives on the line and haven't come back from battle defending our great nation, but for those that continue to put their lives on the line to ensure our safety. So thank you for joining me as always, ladies and gentlemen. Hugely appreciated. We're going to let the last post take us out here. Good luck to your teams this weekend, and I'll catch you guys next time.